We're live.
Yes. Hola, mi gente. Welcome to On the Block with Jen. I'm really excited about this show. This is my LGBTQ show, okay? And I'm going to ask some real questions and get some real answers. I want to introduce Lily, Ty Rivera, Mark Harris, per usual. Also, I am asking with the permission of Lily and Ty that I be really ignorant. Ignorant meaning, let's pretend I've never heard of LGBTQ before. Okay. Now, I know some of the questions you would be like, how the hell wouldn't somebody know that? But you'd be surprised how ignorant the populace is. So I really want to treat this like, let's just pretend that we're explaining this to people, even though I'm sure you've explained it a million times and you're sick of it. Ty, I'm a really big fan of how unapologetic you are about your point of view. It is not the average point of view. And Lily as well. I know you said ask you whatever I need to. Okay. So, if you want to briefly, before we begin, introduce yourself and what you do and how you identify in the LGBTQ community.
Okay. Did you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay, well, I am Lily. I am considered a fashion and beauty mentor. That kind of embodies everything that I do. And I identify myself best as non-binary. I guess like on the borderline of like trans non-binary, but I guess that's the best title to give.
Yeah. Okay. Ty?
My name is Ty Rivera. I'm a stand-up comedian. I've done some stuff. I'm the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. And I identify as a straight-up faggot. That's what I am.
Okay. See, I'm glad this is how we're starting. I love it. Okay, Lily, starting with you. Are there any identities that you would like to be addressed as? He, she, they, them?
Just address me. That's it. I mean, I can care less. So for me, and I have to be, listen, I don't have to be careful. I'm just, anybody who's ever been around me, they know my views on this. I don't like any of the titles, really, because I feel like they are limiting. You know, I don't feel like any one title fits me per se, because I don't look at myself as just in anything, you know. So I always say I'm the spirit inside the body. I'm not this body. You know, I don't even look at human sexuality the way most people look at human sexuality. So a lot of those titles, to me, I feel like they're given to make other people feel comfortable. Because I notice when someone asks me that question and I tell them I don't care, they look really uncomfortable. Like, no, give me a box to put you in. Please give me a box to put you in. And I don't have one, you know. And I realize for me to give them something is to make them feel comfortable. So I can care less.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I have my own issues with labels and stuff like that. Ty, how do you like to be referred to or identified as?
I'm cool with he, him, his, but at the same time, I don't care because I've been around gay men my entire adult life now and hung out with a lot of trans women. So getting called girl and she and bitch and Miss Thing and all of that, that's all comfortable with for me too. I know there's some gay men that really care about that and get offended when you call them girl and she, but those gay men don't really have a place in my life because I feel like when you're really particular about that, you're not really comfortable with who you are because I agree with Lily. Like titles don't really matter. They're more about other people than they are about me. You know. One day I was joking on a YouTube video and I said something about being a woman. You know, like referring to myself, and I was like, you know, being the everyday woman. And somebody commented and was like, I can't believe this is what considers itself a woman in 2019. And I was just like, it was just a joke. I wasn't even being serious about that. It's not like I identify or think I'm a woman, but it is what it is, you know, and so I'm fine with whatever. As long as people are being respectful with me, that's all I care about. I don't care about any titles.
Okay. How do you guys feel about
what's that?
because what Ty said about being respectful. Now, the only time I have an issue is when I feel as, because you can feel someone's spirit behind. You could feel sheer ignorance versus I'm being disrespectful. I don't like when someone appears like they're trying to put me in my place, because you have people who assume because of my aesthetic that I want to be a woman or that I think I'm a woman. Okay. So because of that, they try to like drill in like bro or dude, you know, I know the difference, you know, like you wouldn't do that otherwise, you know. It's like they try to remind me of what they think I forgot I am. So in those cases, I get even extra petty and I'll say, no, shit, you know,
Yeah.
just to be
Okay.
petty. Yeah.
Sometimes we gotta be petty.
Hello. I ain't messing with people.
I'm petty all damn day if you know me. Okay. Let me ask, how do you guys feel about the rainbow flag representing you? How do you feel about it? Are you sick of seeing that damn flag? Are you proud of that flag? How do you feel about the flag?
I think it's cute, especially like on the Facebook emoji when I'm responding to another gay person. I'll hit the flag and then I'll hit the heart just so they know a little bit of gay love coming your way. That's also my way of letting them know that I'm not flirting. You know, this is just gay love. It's not anything to do with like me trying to pick up on you. So I like it in that way. I think it's cute. I mean, like it represents, but at the same time, it's not any big. If someone were to burn a gay flag in front of me, I wouldn't take it as some big hate symbol or like, you know, I can't believe you feel this way. I'd just be like, whatever. It's just, you know, a cute little flag.
I love it because I love color. So, I mean, hey, if that's what you want to pick, I wouldn't have picked anything any better. Color, yeah. As a matter of fact, add some more color to it. I don't know. But yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
I didn't like when they tried to add the brown and the black, though, just to be extra inclusive, because I think that that's already covered in the rainbow. But having the brown and the black just looks ugly to me with the other colors. It doesn't go with the scheme. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What gay would not know about color schemes? You know, like.
Thank you. Or you could have at least made the flag longer and blended into it better. You know, just go black and brown all of a sudden. It's like, where did that come from?
What do you think about, how do you feel when you hear people say, there's a gay agenda, right? Why is everything gay now? These TV shows have gay characters. I walk in Target, there are gay onesies for babies. There's a gay agenda. How do you feel about the gay, quote unquote, gay agenda?
You want to answer that first, because I'm really glad. I'm really glad you asked that question. That's one of my favorite questions that I rarely hear asked, but always told to us. So I don't know. Do you want to go on with that first one, Ty?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. For me, it's kind of mixed, because I think that it's silly in a certain way that people think there is an agenda. But then as a person who's gotten in trouble with other LGBT people for, like, there was a time, it was right before gay marriage became legal. And people were mad at me because I did a joke that was about gay marriage. The joke was very specific, though. It was a joke like about a problem I was having with a roommate that was super gung-ho about gay marriage. And one day he was trying to really push it into my head, just this gay marriage thing. And I got tired of him, and I was like, nobody wants to marry you anyway. Just what it's not what's happening in this house right now. Nobody wants to marry you. Nobody wants to marry me. I'm not making it the focus of my life. And so I made this joke about it, and it was a joke that would do really well in audiences, but I got canceled on a bunch of shows that I was supposed to do because they said I was anti-gay marriage. So when things like that happen from my own community, and there's a policing of the way that I speak, like I addressed at the beginning that I identify as a fag, that's the way I identify. Some people are gay. I don't have a problem with that. There's people that are queer. I don't have a problem with that. There's people that are trans. I don't have a problem with that. But then I say I'm fag, and then suddenly everybody's mad at me because supposedly I'm promoting hate speech. But it's like, if I'm talking about myself, and this is something that I grew up with people throwing in my face as something that was supposed to be an insult, and I decide to own it and say, this is what I am, and I don't have a problem with what I am in any way. And then I get told by my own community that that's not okay, and there's a certain way that I should present myself and a certain take that I should have on politics and everything else. Then I get like, well, maybe there is a little bit of a gay agenda at that point. You know, if I can't, as a gay man, express myself in a particular way without other people getting mad at me and trying to make it so I couldn't, like, there were people that were literally at one point trying to make it so I couldn't get work just because they didn't agree with things I was saying. And this wasn't people from the right wing. This was people that were supposed to be from my own community. And even like certain bits I've done about, because when I was coming up, two of my best friends, even to this day, just from when I was younger, are two trans women. And there's certain jokes that I do just because I've had so many trans friends where I address that, where I talk about trans women. Well, there were people that didn't want me to talk about that because they thought that there was a certain way that I was supposed to say things and there was a certain way I was supposed to address it. And so at that point, I did start to get a little bit disheartened with the gay community. And I really did start to wonder if maybe there was a gay agenda that I just wasn't in the meetings on.
May I ask a question, Jen?
Yes.
Ty, let me ask you this. Do you think that you were treated that way because you were non-white?
It's funny you bring that up because being Latino, specifically Mexican American, is what I am. I'm surprised at the way a lot of people tell me the way I'm supposed to think in general. Like, even when it comes to me, I identify as Chicano when it comes to my ethnicity, which is Mexican American, is shorthand for anybody else that's Latino. They'll know right away. Once I say I'm Chicano, they're like, okay, Mexican American, that's what that is. And so that encompasses there's kind of a lot of ways that people associate like Chicano with, like, you know, like as far as a lot of times we don't speak Spanish, which I don't, you know, obviously we're at least first generation here. And so like it for me, it's a quick shorthand. But then I'll have people, and it's a lot of times white people, that'll tell me that I'm supposed to identify as Latino. And it's like, well, I just told you what I am. So yeah, I think in a lot of cases, people do think when you're Latino that they can tell you what you're supposed to identify as and how you're supposed to present yourself.
Okay. Lily, how do you, it kind of, I don't know if this does sound weird, but it kind of reminds me when you say, you use the word faggot or fag, kind of reminds me of the word nigger turned nigga. And the argument people have, like, no, I flipped the word and now it's something positive. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with queer. Some people get upset. They still get upset with the word queer. I mean, some people are just too damn sensitive. You know, let's just talk about that. All right. Is there agenda? Yes.
Oh, no. Can you explain that?
Yes and no. But Mark hit it on the nail. He asked if it was because Ty was not white. It's kind of like the Me Too movement in a sense. It doesn't, the agenda doesn't really affect us as much as it affects people who are not of color. Okay. That's one thing, because I do see the difference, right? People of the LGBT community, we're just fighting to be equal. We just fighting to just be able to walk down a damn street, you know, as we are without being harassed, to rent an apartment some damn where, you know, whatever it is. We're just fighting for just, you know. But a lot of times with the broader spectrum of the LGBTQ community, is like I've seen more of it's going beyond equal rights into unfair treatment, like just special treatment, like white privilege. We wanted white privilege 2.0, you know, and I see a lot of that. Now, as far as when a lot of people who are cisgender, hetero, you know, when I hear that, a lot of times it's associated with, you know, all this gay shit we seeing on TV, our kids got to see that, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, you trying to influence our kids. And okay, well, hold on now. If you're going to say that, we got to look at it both ways, okay? Because my gay ass been looking at straight shit my entire life now. No, why hasn't it had an agenda on me? Let's talk about this, okay? Now, me and my brother was raised by the same two people, right? The same two people watching the same television show. Now, why didn't he have the same effect as I did? Okay. the bottom line is, it is what it is. We do want to be represented because we are a part of society. When I was growing up, I didn't see anybody who represented me until I happened to see Boy George, and I was like, boom, that whatever I'm looking at, I identify with that. But up until that image, there was nobody or nothing that looked like me or identified with what I was feeling inside. Okay, you are who you are. You know, television, as far as, it's not going to change your sexuality. Now, as far as being traumatized sexually, yes, that's a whole different situation. That could possibly, that's going to affect anybody sexually, and it affects people sexually in different ways. You might become promiscuous, you might not know what your sexuality is, all that other stuff. But just seeing people in love, no, won't do it. Not strong enough. It doesn't work that way. If people could have turned me straight, trust me, they tried. It doesn't work that way, you know.
Yeah, I tried to turn myself straight. I used to pray when I was little because I thought there was something wrong with it. So I would pray all the time that I would be able to be straight. And I did everything I could possibly do to try to make myself straight. I even dated women when I was in high school, but it just didn't take.
It didn't take. It won't work. None of the oil work, none of the prayers, none of the casting out demons, and none of that. None of that work. It just don't work, you know, because it is what it is.
It's a great point. It's a great point, Lily, because, you know, growing up when I was little, I didn't see anyone on TV that represented me in the films I liked. I liked action movies like Aliens and Predator. And then came, you know, Vasquez, right? In Aliens. The first time I ever saw a Latin woman, a strong woman. And I was like, oh, shit. And I had so much pride about it because I'm like, this is how I've always felt. And it was my first time seeing it. And people think it's funny, but it's really the first time I saw someone that I could relate to. So representation is so, so very important. No matter what you're going through or how you identify, it's so, so important because you can be so lost when you don't see anything that looks like you and looks like you in a good light.
Right? Exactly. Because I was always hearing negative stuff. And there was nobody, like I said, I didn't have anyone in my family. It just wasn't, and I knew I was different. I knew I didn't fit in any of those boxes I was seeing in my life, in my immediate circle, you know. And my brother and I, we were so day and night, you know. So it was like, you know, like Ty said, I wanted to be more masculine. I tried to do all the things I could possibly do to appear more masculine. And that was like me being in drag, okay? Like, it was horrible, you know, but it made other people comfortable. They was happy.
Yeah, and it's not even just about feeling different. Like for me, because I grew up in a smaller town in Arizona, it wasn't even just about feeling different. I felt like I wasn't normal. And to me, that really played on my brain for a long time. I had a real problem with that when I was younger because I just wanted to be normal, you know, and people in the gay community sometimes get mad at me for admitting that. But like when I was younger, I didn't know any better, you know, and I didn't know that it was going to turn out to be like it is now, where we could be, in a lot of cases, as accepted as anybody else. But when I was younger, you know, that wasn't even an option. Like, when people were so upset about gay marriage, one of the things that was happening for me was I was like, well, we've made it so far, and I feel like this is going to be an inevitability anyway, that gay marriage is going to happen, you know? So I wasn't really too worried about that because that's not where my life was at that point. And the other thing was, like, you know, we'd gotten to such a point where I felt like we've already come so far, and yeah, we still got a ways to go, but there's nothing to really sweat it over because we're already becoming normalized and people are already starting to accept us. So I was, you know, at the most comfortable point in my life already where I was like, okay, well, at least I can see gay people in media and they can be out, because Queer Eye was already out at that time, and, you know, like, we had actual representation. And when it comes to the term queer, some people identify that way, and I don't have a problem with it. But when I was growing up, queer was like a huge insult. So to me, that's more insulting, if I were to be insulted by anything, than the term I use, you know, like, but I don't have a problem with that. Like people sometimes like put me in the queer box, and I'm 100% fine with that, because when it comes down to it, what other people think about me doesn't define me. I define me.
Can I ask a question for Lily?
Yes.
Okay, you said that, let me ask you this. So you said that you don't think that there's a gay agenda?
I said I do and I don't.
Okay, so you do, but I'm sorry, and the don't part is you don't think that it's been pushed to children?
I don't feel like it's being pushed the way that people are.
Through media?
Yeah, not through media, through the way people are receiving it. Like just the average Joe Schmo, you know, that's who I hear the complaints from the most. And being pushed, no, being represented, because I mean, if that's the case, then heterosexual stuff has been pushed to me all my life.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? So I don't see it being pushed any more than any of the heterosexual. I don't think any sex should be pushed to any children, period.
Right. That's what I was getting at. So my question is this. Okay, so when it comes to the media, right, and how the media in terms of how they push the, how can I put it? How they push as a filmmaker, right? As a filmmaker and as a Black filmmaker, I have an agenda, right? And when I write my films, who I want my films to, how I want my films to portray Black people, so forth and so on. So I have a clear agenda of what I'm trying to do and the minds I'm trying to change. So, which I don't see anything wrong with it. So if you have a community, which is the LGBT community, right? So what makes you think, like, and most filmmakers, most artists, I think most of us have some type of agenda that we're trying to push, whether it's to, you know, so what makes you think that when it comes to the LGBT community, that there's not an agenda that is being pushed in terms of through the media into children? Because like when I do my films, I want children to see the film, right? I want young people to see the film so it can change how they think, you know, and when they're growing up. So do you don't think that there's a agenda that's being pushed to children in order to change how they think, or to make homosexuality, or, you know, more acceptable?
If it's in the educational sense, I can see, you know, because there's different ways of doing it, right? I don't like sex being pushed on children, period.
Right.
You know, because that's part of that traumatization that I'm talking about, right? But education is a completely different situation. So are there people out here like pushing things that are not, you know, that shouldn't be pushed to children, period, like whether it's hetero or LGBT community? Yeah, you know, but as a whole, I don't agree with that. I agree with being represented. We do want to be represented. And for someone like me, if I were to make a movie of my life, it's going to show me as I was at 4 years old. Sex on someone? No, that's just telling that's part of my story. Like someone else is telling their story is going to show them as a heterosexual as a child, you know? Right. So I mean, it depends on how you're doing it, but some things I don't like, whether it's heterosexual or LGBT. I don't care what.
Yeah. I think it's almost in a lot of ways right now, what people are talking about are different things that Disney has done and comic books, like adding gay characters. But I think in a lot of those situations, it's just a matter of like, this is the real world now. So preparing kids for that real world and the fact that they're going to encounter this, there's also, you know, the LGBT kids are getting to watch this and see themselves and be like, okay, maybe I am normal, or maybe I'm not that different. You know, there are other people like me. So there's that gives the comfort level. Then there's also for the straight kids, so that they know not to bully and they're used to it. And they're like, so for me, I think in a good way, that's what it is. Sometimes people get mad with LGBT, which I can kind of understand, because it's kind of like we've gone from wanting tolerance to acceptance to now encouragement. And it's like, nobody owes you encouragement. It doesn't matter who you are, what race you are, how you identify, nobody owes you encouragement. It's nice when they do it, but it's not anything anybody owes you.
Exactly.
See, that's why I love you guys. I knew who I picked for this. I agree, Lily, 100%. If we think of, I think it's for the greater good, right? When you show the LGBTQ in different productions, whether it's music or films or whatever, I think there's more good that comes from it than bad. But I'm with you 100%. Like, everything is pushed on our children, not just homosexuality, their prescription drugs, you know what I mean? Violence, weapons. There are all kinds of things that are continuously being pushed on our, you know, our kids. So you can't really, you know, pinpoint, oh, just there's a gay agenda. If there's an agenda, there are thousands of agendas. From when I was a child, I've seen all kinds of things, you know what I mean, on television. So it's like, you can't just, oh, there's a gay agenda. What about the prescription medicine? You know what I mean? What about the violence? What about white people all knowing and all powerful in the alpha and the omega? Like, there are agendas everywhere. You know what I mean? So I agree with you 100%. I think it is. I think the representation is for the greater good, because it does make straight kids like, okay, it's not good to bully somebody that's different. And then also, you know what I mean, bring solace to children that are of the community. So I agree with you 100%. So I wanted to speak about, because we're dealing here on the panel with Black and Latin. Latins, there's a lot of machismo, right, with men. Black, there's a lot of strong Black men, don't play that gay shit. So how do you feel about the response in your immediate community? Do you think that you get it a lot worse than, let's say, a white person in the LGBTQ community? How do you deal with that when it's so close to home?
Oh my God, honey. I can write a whole book on this topic alone. You know, toxic masculinity is real, 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 real. Okay. Especially in the Black community. Okay. For instance, I'm pro-Black and anti-nobody. Okay. I love being Black. I love being everything that comes with it. Okay. What's disheartening sometimes is like when I tune into pro-Black conversation, it's always pro-Black, but not y'all gay motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? So it's always like that. You know, it's rare that I feel included in the pro-Black movie. It's like, hey, I'm happy to be Black too. You know, I want to progress. Like, I want to be, and you know, like, just keep hope alive. And, you know, I don't feel that invitation, you know. Luckily for me, I have my biological dad. He is masculine, you know, from the inner city of Washington, D.C., street dude through and through, and is my biggest fan. Thank God. Okay. Because it played a really big role. Because I had it hard on other ends as far as family is concerned, but for my dad, it was like my saving grace. And I have seen so much. Now I was raised by my stepdad. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like what I've come to realize is that when it comes to me or people like me, I see a lot of people's ego get involved. It's like as if I represent them in a way. So you get what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah. I feel like it's more ego based, more ignorance based, more of what they're taught, because I tell people all the time, I've never met a prejudiced child. I've never met a homophobic child. Never. I meet children all the time. The question that I get from them all the time is, are you a boy or a girl? I simply tell them, I'm a boy that looks like a girl. They go, okay, let's finish playing. Boom, done. So that is taught.
I have a question. What is actually, two questions, a two-part question. What is actually toxic masculinity, and how can masculinity be toxic?
Masculinity and femininity itself is a natural thing, right? Mm-hmm. But when it's toxic when it's used, how can I put it? God, it's so hard to explain. It's toxic when it's used to hurt somebody, right? When it's
why can't that just be a person who's an asshole? Why does it has to be the masculine energy though?
because there's toxic femininity.
I'm sorry.
I'm not leaving them out either then.
I've got
If there's
with people
such thing
about
as
toxic
femininity.
masculinity on both sides, you know, and it's just like when masculinity is used as the excuse, a lot of times what they're referring to with toxic masculinity is when it's used as the excuse for thinking that you're better than women. That's toxic masculinity. When it's used as you're not supposed to show emotion because you're a man, that's toxic masculinity. You know, other men will shame you about it. There's just like certain places where I can see how it becomes toxic. I'm not a person who believes like, you know, toxic masculinity is as big as some in maybe the feminist community think it is. But at the same time, I do actually see it sometimes where I'm like, oh yeah, that would be like sometimes when you get a bunch of boys together, if you notice a lot of times when things happen, you know, like I tell my nieces who are young, you know, I tell them don't ever be by yourself in a group of boys because a lot of times bad things happen when it's only boys around and like one of a girl. That's why you hear about these things with like football players in different situations where girls get sexually assaulted. A lot of times that's a result of toxic masculinity because nobody's strong enough to actually say, hey, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this right now. Instead, they think it's time for a gangbang.
I can vouch for the toxic masculinity as a straight woman.
Let me ask the three of y'all a question. What is actually masculinity to you all?
It's an energy. I feel like every person possesses both. Some a little bit more than others, you know. But it's for me, it's hard to describe without using these limited terms that we kind of use to it, you know, like because people like to say masculine and masculine is male and feminine is more female. I just look at it as like, no, both of them are human energies, you know. For instance, I look at myself as more of a feminine energy in a male form. You know, I possess masculine energy as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but in any given moment, I can express because I'm more of a feminine energy. I can express toxic femininity if I'm not careful. You know what I'm saying? So each side could be toxic if not checked. You know, because even in the feminist movement, I see a lot of toxicity a lot of times. You know, towards the masculine side. So it's not just one sided now.
Yeah,
I'm equal opportunities around here. I'm gonna give everybody, you know.
Me too, and I agree. Yeah, sometimes I see it on both sides, and I'm like, okay, you need to be checked, and you need to be checked as well. It's like it does happen on both sides, and either way, it sucks.
Yeah,
I can simplify it like the examples I can use, Mark, to answer your question on why is it not just masculinity. I use Trump and Obama. When both those men walk in a room, they're both, you know, exuding masculine energy, right? But Trump is very, very toxic masculine energy, and Obama is a man with masculine energy, right? And he can be a man without being toxic. So that's the simplest way for me to explain it. Some men just carry themselves around in a very toxic way because they own a penis, and that's their excuse to act the asshole. So it's more than just being masculine because Obama is very masculine, right? But then in comes Trump, and it's a whole different energy.
I guess it's the same way as like white privilege. You know, a white person who is like exuding white privilege. It's like, I know I got it. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it to the fullest. You know, as opposed to a person who's like, I know I got it, but I'm not gonna use it. You know, I mean, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, but let me ask you all a question. Okay, so within the LGBT community, right? If you are, I'm sure you all know you all have people who you all may look at to carry a negative energy, right? So would you all consider that to be like masculine energy? What would you all like? Like she just gave the example of Trump and Obama walking into a room, right? So if you are right at an event, and it was an event for the LGBT community, right? You have somebody who walks in with that positive Obama energy, but they're gay, and you have another person who walks in with that that negative energy, like Trump. But would you all say that person is carrying toxic masculine energy?
No,
yeah.
we call those people lesbians.
Oh,
Look, I'm just saying, don't be mad at me if lesbians are watching. It was a joke. It was a joke.
See, I don't know why I knew Tom was going to go there.
Look, I don't need trouble. It was a joke.
But you know what? That could be, that masculine energy can come in any form. Like I said, I'm a feminine energy in a male form. That masculine energy could come in any form. And I have seen that masculine energy come in a female form. Yes.
But how's it, if it's masculine energy, which represents the male energy, how's it?
No, what just represents an energy. I don't look at it as male energy and female energy. I just see it as an energy.
But what is okay? So this is a question I think we didn't even answer yet. But what is masculinity to you all? If you define masculinity, what is it?
I just look at it as an energy, but how do I define that energy? That's just difficult because I don't like to use these terms male and female, and because I just don't look at it like all males gonna, like that. It's so limited to me. I can't even use that. But we all have it. We all have both.
It's a big thing on Grindr, and something like a lot of gay men debate about, because like on Grindr, you'll see people will post mask for mask, which means masculine for masculine. And in a lot of cases, they just want to be kind of fooled into like feeling like they're getting a straight guy, even though you're gay. Like I have a lot of people hit me up like that because like, I think all the tattoos make them feel like I'm particularly masculine. But for me, it's a lot of pressure, and it's not something that I really want to deal with. And I'll let people know if they ask me if I'm feminine or masculine, I let them know that I don't really, think in those terms. Like I'm a lot like Lily in that way, where I think we have both energies in us. And I think that the smartest people are the ones that actually work with both and use them to their advantages when they need them. So for me, I'm not going to go out of my way to pretend to be what you think is masculine and talk a particular way. I mean, like I will if we're just having a hookup. If it's a quick 30 minutes to an hour, we're just going to hook up, I'll be whatever you want. But if we're actually going to be in a relationship and hanging out, I'm not going to put on this facade for you and pretend to be something that I'm not. I was raised with sisters. I have 3 sisters. My dad was working all the time. My mom basically raised me, even though my dad was in the house. His hours were limited. By the time he got home, it was usually later in the evening. We got to see him for 2 or 3 hours before we went to sleep, and we went to sleep. So for me, I have a lot of feminine energy, and I'm not going to try to push that down just because it's a turn on for you that I'm masculine.
I agree 100%. I have a lot of what people have told me is masculine energy, right? I was a tomboy when I was young, and I agree with you 100%, Ty. Like smart people know how to use both. To answer your question, Mark, it's an energy. So it's more of a feeling than a description. It's like I always have this joke. I always say, women know when a man walks in the room, right? I'm talking about energy. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about energy. So I can't really describe it. It's a feeling, you know what I mean? And I can also feel toxic masculine energy. And I can also feel when someone is gay and they're bringing toxic gay energy. Like, I'm gay and I have a right to X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. And this is, so you can be toxic with how you identify as well. It's not just limited to men because, feminists, some of them are off the chain, like in unbearable, to deal with. They're bringing, negative feminine energy, and they think because they have a vagina, that they can talk about men and handle men however they like. But as far as masculine energy, to answer your question, it's something you feel. Like you can feel it, like Obama versus Trump. So you feel it.
I get that analogy, but the thing is that as we all know that, even in general, right, when we talk about energy, the term toxic masculinity is always thrown out there. And that's the only term that is used, no other term. So, but I get what you're saying, Janet, in terms of, and what you are saying is that it's across the board. But
well, the word toxic isn't used, but the women are called feminazis. You know
Yeah,
what I
I'm
mean?
about to say, yeah, there's a whole there. They just use a different term, but they got a word to describe them too.
okay,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mhm.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. They just don't use the word toxic, but they got plenty words for us. I've heard them all. They're very colorful.
Yeah, they are.
Mhm.
Yeah, and now you are starting to hear people address it more, like the toxic femininity. Like people do address that a little bit more, and that's becoming a more popularized term. Just, for a long time, people would just say toxic masculinity, and I think that's also because it just has a ring to it, and people like when words sound good together.
Right.
Ty, I wanna go back to you because we didn't get your answer. How do you feel about being Latin and Latins are very macho and you have to look and walk and talk a certain way to represent being a man in the community. I'm Latin. I know my father was very very toxic and masculine. So how do you feel dealing with that in your immediate community, whether it's your family members or your friends or just your immediate community being Mexican?
My family's great. I had to really work with my mom and dad in the beginning. And so, because like my dad, one thing that Mexican dads specifically do is if they don't agree with what you're doing, they'll try to make you feel like it's a dumb idea. So when I told my dad I was gay, he tried to like break me down by being like, well, explain that to me. What does that mean? And then, like I tried to explain it to him and he was like, so you think guys are girls? So you think you're a girl, and that's kind of the way he went at it. And it was like, he was trying to make me feel like, oh, this is a dumb idea. I just shouldn't be gay. I don't know why he thought that would work, but it's the route he took, and now he's completely all right with it. Mexicans in general, because, Latino is such a broad term. I'm Mexican specifically and, grew up in Arizona where we have a high population of Mexicans. It's kind of weird for me because like I've grown up like with so many Mexicans that were curious and kind of wanted to like, experiment with me in some way. And so I never really bought into them as being that straight or that masculine because I always felt like, well, as soon as your girlfriend turns around, you're going to be trying to flirt with me anyway. So how much do I really care what you think? Of course, you're being homophobic in public. You've got a crush. It's like pulling pigtails at this point. Like that's the way I see it a lot of times, and I used to go to like the Mexican bars and, because I knew that I would flirt with guys and like eventually sometimes go out to the parking lot and hook up there. And so, like I see it and I know that it's supposed to be there, but I don't take it seriously when it comes from Mexicans.
I don't take it seriously either.
Yeah, it's always kind of like, why are you trying?
Actually, no, it actually like okay, I always describe it like this. I'm paying you absolutely, positively no mind at all, especially in that type of way, right? Until you exert this type of like it's like a warning cry or something, right? The homophobic thing. I'm like, oh shit, I wasn't even looking at you until you did that, but now you're making me look at you. Because from my experience, the guys who pretend to be most homophobic are the down low guys. That's just my experience. The ones who make the biggest raw about it, the biggest fuss about it. I promise you, whenever everyone turns their back, they are trying to do it. It's like trying to make everybody look this way. Go look that way while I go do what I got to do over here. So people can say, oh, I know such and such ain't gay. You hear how he talk about them folks.
Now, do you think that all men that do that are on the down low, or do you think that some men are like, super straight and they just don't want any parts of the LGBTQ?
I don't think all of them are. I don't think all of them are. In my experience, most of them are.
Okay.
I really feel like the majority. Yeah, I agree. The majority are trying to, because it's like you think about it this way. If you really don't like something, you don't look at it. You don't pay attention to it. You don't turn it into the whole focus of your life.
Yes.
Yeah, there's certain things that I find absolutely disgusting. They're not usually to do with like people or sexuality, but there's just things that I find disgusting. I completely don't look at them. To me, they don't even exist. So if you're turning into the entire focus of your life and you want, like, when I was younger, I remember that I hung out with a bunch of gangbangers, and they used to talk about gay people in the worst way. But then they would go to the gay bars to steal cars, and that was their excuse, but they would go to the gay bar to steal cars. And then later on in life, a few of them came out too, and it was the ones that were always suggesting that we go to the gay bars to steal the cars. So it's like, were you there just for the cars?
It's true. I mean, most of them, they are. I honestly, that's been like the story of my life up until recent years, and that's a whole nother situation, because I look at things more spiritual anyway. Ty, where's Ty?
No.
Okay. Up until some years ago, that's
Hello?
all I attracted. Like, that's all I attracted was down low guys.
Wow.
And that was
I'm having a problem. I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me, Ty? Ty, can you hear me?
Ty, he may have to go out and come back in.
I think that's what he's doing.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You want me to keep
Ty,
going, or you want to wait?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, he's gonna have to come back in, I think.
Hopefully he comes back.
Yes.
Right back in.
Ty, if you can hear us and you see us, come back in. Okay, I see him. Okay. You back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. So you were saying, Lily?
Up until a few years ago, like, that's all I attracted. Literally. From early in life, the kid that was like, you know how the little boys like to pull the girls' pigtails and stuff, like, from that little, like, that's how, it was. And I have seen every type of down low man you can probably think of and not think of. That's why nothing in this world, when it comes to sexuality, surprises me. I have seen it all.
I'm sorry.
And so with that being said, it is usually those guys who put so much energy in trying to deflect that typically turn out to be down low, but that right here,
I don't doubt it for a second.
That's a whole nother show. It's so deep psychologically that I can't even get into it at this point, because there's a lot of separation that comes, like a lot of mental people. It's easy for them to separate things. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I have a question for them. So, Lily, Ty, so when you all come in situations like that with down low guys, right, and you all know that these guys are down low, do you feel that it's your responsibility to either warn, or, like, say for instance, if they're in a relationship with a woman, do you think it's your responsibility, because we have social media now, that it's your responsibility to warn the women that they're in a relationship with that these dudes are down low?
That bitch ain't my business. I'm here to get that business.
Now, if me and homegirl breaking bread, that's my homegirl. We, that you my sister. I love you, and I know, and I slept with dude. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with homosexual. Nothing. That's just girl code. But random girl, oh no, that ain't none of my damn business. No. No. I never, no, that's none of my business. It's not my story to tell.
Ty?
I was just raised that way, where I wouldn't, like, even with my other gay men friends, I just don't mess with anybody that I know's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. Like, I'm just not that type. But when it comes to, like, down low guys in general, I've hooked up with a lot of them. It's weird because I think me and Lily are in a very similar situation, but for different reasons. Where she carries more of the feminine energy, people are going to go after him for a different reason. Where it comes to me, it's a different way, because, I carry more of the masculine energy, and that will make down low guys be attracted to me for a different reason. But I think we've both dealt with a lot of that. And when it comes down to it, I feel like it's really not my business Because, you know, a lot of times when I hook up with down low guys, it's in some like anonymous situation. It's a hookup off Grindr or Scruff, or I'm in an adult bookstore, or it's always some kind of shady situation. And it's not like I would be able to get their information anyway. You know, I don't see them again. I don't talk to them. I don't know their actual Facebook, any of that stuff. And I wouldn't insert myself anyway, because in a lot of cases, what people forget is that there are a fair amount of situations where their partner, their girlfriend, their wife has some idea, and she really doesn't want to know. So if I come over saying it, she's kind of like, well, why are you ruining my facade? I'm willing to deal with this because he pays the bills, he takes care of the kids, he does the things I need him to do. And now you're bringing this to my attention to where I have to address it in some way. And I was fine pretending it just wasn't happening.
I mean, I think in all fairness, when someone, gay or straight, is dealing with someone that they know has a significant other, I mean, no one announces it, right? The people that are doing the messing around, no one goes to the wife or the girlfriend or the husband or the boyfriend and says, hey, by the way, I'm messing with your significant other. Like if he's on the down low, then you're on the down low as well, and you know that he has somebody. I don't think anybody goes and announces it unless, you know, there's some bad blood, or somebody wants to get back at somebody, or it's a vengeful act. But nobody announces, you know, they're messing around with anybody who has a significant other. I don't think, right? Gay or straight?
No, and I don't like to weaponize homosexuality anyway. It just is. So that ain't none of our business. I don't care, you know. The only person that person owes it to is the person that they're sleeping with, and that's an integrity issue. That has nothing to do with me. You know, I don't need to hold them to their integrity.
Yeah, and you can see a wedding ring. Like, you know I've hooked up with people and seen a wedding ring, but the thing is, like, you know, we live in a world where men can marry men, and that's what I mess around with as men. And in a fair amount of situations, men, even when they're married to each other, will be in open relationships. That's very common in the gay community. So, you know, I'm not going to do investigative work and find out who this person is married to, and, like, you know, whether or not they have an agreement, or, like, you know, there's even people that are in open relationships, open marriages, where the only rule is just make sure it doesn't get brought to my attention. You do what you do, but I don't want to hear about it. So, you know, in a way, I'm getting in the way of their agreement at that point. I'm not even being a good person, even though I think I'm getting my wings early to go to heaven. That's not what's happening at all. Instead, I'm making problems. Now I'm a homewrecker.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, right? I'm glad you brought up heaven, because you know, I talk a lot about religion. As you guys know, or whoever's watching it doesn't know, I'm an atheist. That's the label that they give to people who don't believe in Jesus or religion or God, right? You know, like Lily, I'm not really big, you know, into labels, but that's the label for me, right? How do you guys feel about religion? I always say that with religion, people compartmentalize, or they cookie cut it or custom fit it to still be able to practice and believe, right? But they custom fit it and take out all the ugly stuff. How do you feel about being religious, if you are, and how they say in the Bible or religion, homosexuality is an abomination and you all should die? If you're religious, how do you separate that? How do you separate that from the God that you pray to and serve?
I can't answer that question because I've been asking that question for a long time. I don't know how you do that. Like, okay, for me, I cannot pledge allegiance to something that doesn't pledge allegiance to me. That's me. I can't bring myself to say I believe this when this is damning me. I can't compartmentalize that personally. Today, I've tried, because that's the world I come from and that's how I was raised. It didn't work for me. Like, it almost killed me. So when I see people do it, I'm wondering, how are you doing it? Like, how are you living doing that? Because religion, I think, has its good points and its negative points as well. I don't subscribe to any religion. I'm definitely very spiritual. I'm really, really big in the spiritual stuff. And spiritual principles are never in conflict. So that no matter what religion that may be, they all have the same spiritual principles. But I don't understand how people pledge allegiance to a religion that doesn't pledge allegiance to them. That's weird. I don't get it. No one's been able to explain it to me. I don't know.
Ty?
I identify as Catholic, and I personally feel as long as the guys I pick are over 18, I'm doing better than most of the priests are. So
Look, you
I'm not
hey,
gonna deal with a lot of judgment when it comes to that. I'm just not. But you know, on a serious note, like the way I see it is like, because I identify as Catholic because my mom raised me. You were baptized Catholic, you're always going to be Catholic. And I've done so many things that, like, you know, outside of just being LGBT, being gay, I've done so many things that I guess my parents probably would, like, they had to either forgive or pretend we're not, whatever. You know, I just have been all kinds of fucked up in my life. So when it comes to that, it's like one of the few places that I'll actually let my parents have their way and continue to be Catholic or identify as Catholic, even though I don't really subscribe to the religion in general, not only because of what we know about the priest and the Catholic Church scandal and all that, but also because for me, I was talking to some friends about this. I did a show in Mongolia at one point, and like they were really pressing me about it because the people I was hanging out with were Catholic, and they were like, "Well, how can you be gay and Catholic?" And I was like, "Really? I just identify as Catholic, but technically I'm not a Catholic, and I really don't subscribe to any religion. I'm more on the spiritual end. I believe in God, but the way I see it is, it's like if you think about candy." Like God is the candy, religion is the wrapper. So at a certain point, you throw out the wrapper and you just keep the candy.
I like that.
Okay. Is there any animosity between gay and trans? Is there like beefing going on now?
To tell you the truth, yes. And in some ways, it's warranted on both sides, depending on when you're talking about it. Like when I was younger, like I said, the first people that really made me feel at home were two trans women. They were the best friends I ever had. And we weren't anything sexual at any point. They were just my two best friends. And I used to see the gay boys disrespect them all. Well, try to disrespect them all the time because the girls I knew were more like the girls that would beat your ass if you really disrespected them. So the gay boys would try to disrespect them, they'd get checked, and I could see how sometimes the girls would get like, okay, I'm not putting up with this from the boys, because the boys in a lot of cases back then especially would call them drag queens or cross dressers and not respect the fact that they were trans women. So that was when I was younger. Then more recently, it's turned into, and this is a lot of the online trans community, not trans women living their lives as women every day, but more the overly militant trans women that are on the internet that really aren't getting their respect in regular life. They'll try to push this thing where they don't trust cisgender males or cisgender people in general. Cisgender gays is a lot of times the way that they'll put it, you know, so that means lesbian or
now, what's cisgender? What is cisgender for people that don't know?
Cisgender is when your basically when your mind matches up with your body or your sex assigned at birth. So you're born physically a woman and your brain also coincides with that. It agrees that you are a woman. So that's, or man, depending. So it's cisgender male or cisgender female. And that's basically what that is. And it's just an extender that they put on just to make trans people feel more comfortable. And that's something people can look up. It's not me just saying that, you know, it's, they put it on to just make it a little bit more equal. So there's a trans woman and a cis woman, a trans man and a straight man. And so, but a lot of straight people, cisgender people, don't like the term cisgender, and it's not something I ever force on anybody. I'll just use it to make the differentiation if I'm having this type of conversation. But yeah, so I noticed, and I've had a lot of really hateful trans people come at me online because, yeah, and they'll say outright that they don't trust me just because I'm a cisgender male. And it's like, well, that's not really fair. So, like I said, it seems to be there is some kind of beef there that really shouldn't be. But at this point, it's both sides, just at different times.
Lily?
Yeah, I do think, and this is just from my experience, I can't speak for anybody else. And it does play a difference. It has played a difference for me between where I've lived at as well. I lived in Atlanta for 13 years, and I've lived in New York for the past year and a half. It's been, for me, completely different here in New York versus Atlanta. When I was in Atlanta, especially when I started to kind of transition into what you see today, because that's not how I arrived in Atlanta, I didn't fit in any of those boxes any longer. So I wasn't in the box of like the feminine gay men, and I wasn't in the box of the trans women. So both parties was like, get the hell up out of here, you know, like you ain't coming up, you ain't, we not, you know. So I didn't feel a part of in the community. I just really didn't. And so when I came here, I was expecting to get the same treatment. I've had that treatment at some point, but a lot less of it. So it's I've been seeing a lot more unity here, but it does exist. It does exist, but on a smaller level. I just think it comes with people's comfort level with themselves. That's all. When someone's uncomfortable with themselves, they take it out of everybody else. It's just that simple. I can care less who you are or what you are, but most people, gay, straight, cis, whatever, do care when they are not comfortable with who they are. So I just think it's more boils down to that.
I agree with that. Definitely, I agree with that. It usually does come from a person's own comfort level because, you know, I'm comfortable with who I am, so I don't mind how you identify, and I'm not going to try to fight that in any way. You tell me how to address you, you tell me what pronouns to use, that is not a problem. But when you're not comfortable with yourself and you're like, this is the way you talk to every trans woman, and I'm like, hey, I know trans women. So that's not the way I talk to every trans woman. If you want to tell me that's the way I talk to you as a trans woman, that's something I can respect. But you're not going to completely just like I can't tell you guys might have gay friends that don't think the way I do, don't talk the way I do. I'm not going to tell you, you address them as fags. Girl, they're right there. You lost them. You know, like I'm giving you a bad advice right there, you know, but you know, you address them this way. These are the words you don't say. And you're like, hey, I know gay men. I don't need you to guide me through this. I'm just asking you how I'm supposed to address you specifically so I can respect you as a person. And really, that's all any of us should worry about is, you know, yeah, there's the bigger causes and whatever else, but how people are treating us in everyday life and whether or not they're showing us respect.
Okay. Can I ask you about things that really seem to piss off heterosexual or cisgendered men and women? The issue of, if you can answer, the issue of we need transgender bathroom, or things like, well, it's okay that, you know, children as young as 7 are now being given, you know, hormone blockers for sex changes. Can you guys speak on that? Do you feel like you can speak on that, even though you don't identify as transgender? Because these are things that really piss off, quote unquote, you know, the straight society, when people are like, no, I need a transgender bathroom, or I am a transgender woman, I have every right to be in the women's bathroom. How do you guys feel about that?
That is hilarious. Okay, going back to living in Atlanta versus living in New York, that topic started to come up when I was living in Atlanta. I thought it was, as far as I'm gonna address both of them, but one of them is really super stupid to me, and the other one I feel is a valid concern.
Okay.
The bathroom, stupid as I don't know what. I thought it was the dumbest thing that we could even be talking about on the face of the earth. Okay. And then the points that people were bringing up were even more stupid. I mean, I thought it was the biggest joke ever. And I was like, but I forgot I was living in the Bible Belt. So I was like, is it just me, or do I think this is the dumbest thing ever, right? And it was always on the news, and people were talking about it, people was outraged. And then I moved to New York, and there's genderless bathrooms everywhere, and no one cares, and there's no issue, and there's nothing, and no one talks about it, and it's just the dumbest thing ever. So it wasn't just me, okay? As far as the hormone blockers, I'm glad you brought that one up too, because when everyone was going on the whole Dwayne Wade situation with Dwayne Wade's daughter, this was my take on it. I never spoke on this publicly, never, for a lot of reasons. But my issue, because a lot of people jumped to when the child wanted to be identified as a female, to now the child's going to be on hormones and have a sex change, blah, blah, blah. And transgender doesn't mean all of those things. That's why I said people consider me transgender, even though I haven't had any hormones, no sex change, not planning on it. You know, I just identify with the feminine part of me. So with that being said, I agree with everything. Like, the child knows who they are. Trust me with that. I knew who I was just like you knew who you were, okay? But when it comes to permanent decisions like hormone blockers for children, that's where I personally draw the line. I don't feel like a child should be making such permanent decisions. Hormone blockers and surgeries in general, you know, I like, that's like a 15-year-old saying that they want a nose job. No, like, because everyone's teasing them. No, like, so I don't agree with that. But as far as the bathrooms, stupid, dumb, laughable.
But why is it? Why? Can I ask the question again?
Yeah.
Why do you say that about the bathrooms?
Because so the points that people used to always bring up were, oh my God, like, our children, you know, go in and all this other stuff, and there's same-sex bathrooms everywhere here in New York. You never even hear any issues, ever. Like, never. There's children in it, because kids don't care. Like I said, kids aren't thinking about sex. We are, you know? And so you never hear any issues about any kids being touched and kidnapped. It's never that. None of that, you know? Like, they currently operate like that here, everywhere. And there's never an issue. And when I tell them that I came from a place where it was an issue, people think they're like, really? They really thought about it? They cared about that? Like, the way that people think here versus where I came from in the Bible Belt was completely different. Like, they think it's dumb too. They're like, people really made that an issue? I'm like, yes, I'm not joking, you know? So I've never seen an issue. I used to let the bathrooms open.
I've never known a trans person that was going into the bathrooms to do anything but go to the bathrooms. You know what I mean? Like, I never knew a trans person that was like, I'm gonna go in and see if I could pick up, or I'm gonna go in and, like, I mean, like, gay men, on the other hand, now that's who you want to watch in the bathrooms. Because we'll sneak in there with each other. That is common. And I know some people will get mad at that too, but it's what it is, you know? So, like, as far as the bathrooms, I think that's a complete non-issue. I don't even know a lot of well-adjusted people of either sex that care about that. I think that's more something they put in the news just because it makes people that are crazy argue. And it gives something to talk about. But when it comes to kids on hormones and that kind of stuff, one thing that I have talked about, like, quite a bit is when I was younger, my older sister kind of messed me up in the head, because she was like, if you don't like girls, and this was her just talking to me, she wasn't like saying that I didn't like girls, but she was like, boys like girls and girls like boys. So if you don't like girls, then you must be a girl. And so growing up with that, and then, like Jen said earlier, masculine culture and being Latino, when I was younger, that messed me up, and it made me think that I must be a girl, because being gay wasn't an option. I didn't even know the word gay. Like I said, I just knew I wasn't normal. And so, like, until I was probably 13, at 13 or 14, I, in my head, thought that I must have been meant to be a woman. And I was thinking about this all the time. And I was always feeling like, okay, I guess at some point I'm going to end up being a girl. Like, that's what I thought. Now, could you imagine if my parents had been open to that and I had actually started on hormone blockers and everything else? And then now I can tell you that I have no gender dysphoria. I have no feelings of being a woman. I don't think I'm a woman. I don't think I was meant to be a woman. So, if I had started down that road, and I've had some trans friends tell me that too, that sometimes they do look at their bodies, and this is just them being 100%, hair down with me. But they were just like, sometimes I do look at my body and I'm kind of like, what have I done? What have I done to myself?
I've met a lot of them that say the same thing.
Yeah. And then, with the big thing not too long ago that they were talking about with all the kids that were detransitioning that had started to transition earlier. And now they it's too permanent of a decision to make and too much to put your body and your brain through, because a lot of people don't even think about that. They just think about the physical changes. They just think about breast implants or the breast growing from the hormones or that kind of stuff. But they're not thinking about the fact, even if you talk to a grown trans person, they will tell you that it's a lot on your brain when you have these hormones running through your body and you're going through hormone blockers and it takes adjusting. It's like any other kind of medication you're getting on. So to do that to a young kid, I think is just too much to put on them. And I think that's where the parents need to be smart enough to be like, look, let's compromise. Because I think a smart parent should compromise with their kid and be like, you can dress however you want. If you want to wear wigs, if you want to have long hair, if you want to dress in dresses, or you're a girl and you want to dress like a boy, do that. You can express yourself however you want. But as far as any medical or physical changes, we're going to wait on all that until you're old enough to really make that decision and 100% that this is what you want and this is who you are.
I have a question. So let me ask you this. So in when you all discover who you all are, right? Why is it that is it like a natural, why is it that the voice change and the mannerisms change?
Because you become more comfortable with who you are and with expressing yourself. That's the way I feel. Because when I was younger, I was really always trying to be when I was younger, and I, young, and I had kids teasing me and stuff like that. I wanted to be more like a boy, so more masculine, you could say. And so I was really making an effort at it and trying to be normal. So then when I came out of the closet, it took me a couple years to get comfortable with myself. But once I got fully comfortable with myself, then it's like, I'm not going to worry how much I use my hands when I talk. I'm not going to worry about dropping my voice a couple octaves, because that's something I used to do when I was younger too. I used to speak in a deeper voice because I was trying to make myself seem more masculine. So now I can just be the regular me. And I can tell you that the person you're talking to, the person you're listening to right now, isn't making any effort to be anything other than what they are, which takes no effort at all. I can just be me, just like you can be you without trying. So it's more than not trying anymore than being something different or trying to be something else.
When I tell my story, I always I best explain what that's like, is growing up and constantly having note to self because someone told me, why are you walking like that?
Mm-hmm.
Boys don't walk like that. I'm like, oh, note to self, don't walk like that. Why are you holding your fork like that? Boys don't hold their fork. Note to self, don't hold your fork like this. Why are you talking like that? Boys don't talk like that. Note to self. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was like a damn robot. I'm like, okay, talk like this, hold your hands like this, act like this, all of this. It was an act. It's so much energy. It is so much energy. I was so self-conscious about every single move I made, every word I used, every hand gesture, everything. So yes, when I finally said I'm no longer going to choose to be uncomfortable so other people could be comfortable, I still was uncomfortable because I didn't know how I was going to be received when I started just let that go, and I had to shake it off. It took years to not perfect it because I never perfected it, but it took years to get there. I had to find out who I really was, and it wasn't like I just woke up one morning and had a fierce face. You know, it took it took some time to, you know, get comfortable and figure out who I was and you know, fall into that. So yeah, that's usually what you get.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, the checklist, because I think a lot of us went through that, like hearing the like boys don't do this until you're like, okay, I'll go ahead and make sure I do that from now on. And then you're living by this list a lot of times where you're like, this is the way I'm supposed to act, this is the way I'm supposed to talk, this is the way I hold my hands, you know, like that's what it is. And it does take a while to actually find yourself after you come out of the closet and you realize, because it takes a while to realize you don't even have those limitations anymore. It's like, oh, I can do all of this. It doesn't matter. I can say anything I want, do whatever I want. Like, you just be me now. I don't have to try anymore. But, you know, it doesn't happen right away because you have that ingrained in you. I came out when I was 17, I think. I had just turned 17 when I was out. So, you know, if you think about it, that's, you know, like maybe you become really aware of that stuff when you're like 4 or 5. I know kindergarten was when I started hearing the kids, you know, tell me that I was like a sissy or that kind of stuff, you know, and so that's when my list started. So for 12 years, I was pretending to be something other than what I was. So it's going to take, you know, at least a couple years to undo some of that and make yourself comfortable with what you really are.
Yeah.
Do you think there are a lot of people, myself included, right? I'm like zero fucks given about every year there's a new label or word or letter added to things in general. Like, I don't know what the fuck millennial means. I don't give a damn about Latinx. I'm Latina, that's how I grew up. And I think for us older people, like, it gets frustrating when, you know, every year it's like, well, no, now you have to address these people as that. Now you have to address these people as that, right? Like, it's frustrating for me. Like, people like, you're Latinx, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm Latin, right? Yeah. So do you think that it's our duty to keep up with the times, with the LGBTQ and every letter that's added? And it's like, do you think it's our duty to the homosexual community, the LGBT, the queer, trans, how do you feel about us having to be on top of what letters are added and what they mean?
I personally think it only matters, in my opinion, it only matters if you're outright disrespecting someone. You know, if you meet an individual and they say, like, Lily identifies as non-binary. So, like, if you meet someone like Lily, she tells you she's non-binary, says she doesn't care about pronouns either way. I say she and her because, to me, she looks feminine. So, like, that's what I say. I'm not all trying to be disrespectful. Now, if she were to tell me outright, hey, I prefer you address me as he and him, then that's something that I'll get used to. But I also think it's the other person's responsibility, as you're trying to make these adjustments, to be patient with you and politely remind you instead of getting mad at you and acting like you're just supposed to know this, because otherwise, how are you supposed to know? There's a very popular YouTuber by the name of ContraPoints that identifies as non-binary, I believe, but she expects everybody to just know that her pronouns are she and her. And so a lot of times with non-binary people, their preferred pronouns are like they, them, and theirs. So it's like, you can't get mad at people for not knowing. You know, you gotta at least meet people halfway if, you know, you're gonna identify as something that's not considered the norm or something that we come across every day. You know, even with trans people, sometimes when they're first starting their transition, you don't really know what they're doing. You can't tell. They just have an androgynous look. So you take the best guess you can take, and maybe in your brain, they look male. And so you say him or he, and then they get mad at you and act like you're being the worst person in the world because you said him or he. And you're like, well, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but they will not forgive you in some cases. And they just keep talking about how hateful you are. And to me, that's the worst way to go about it. It's the worst way.
Lily, someone asked in the comments what they're sorry for sounding dumb, but what does non-binary mean?
That means gender non-conforming. Basically, how I describe myself as the spirit inside the body. I'm not this body, I'm the spirit inside the body. So I don't particularly identify as either male or female. It's kind of like both. I'm embracing both the masculine and feminine parts of my being. So it's just that. I mean, I always say I'm neither and both at the same time, you know? Yeah, I'm just
So
embracing.
just for everyday life, would you be offended either way if someone said he or she to you?
Not one bit. Not me personally. I mean, when I say neither pronoun move me either way, because I see myself as a spirit inside the body. So I mean, both of them apply, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's just I don't think about that because it's just like the alphabet thing. To me personally, that is very counterproductive because it's like you're just steadily adding on boxes to be placed in, like just steadily adding on boxes. And, you know, each letter is a box to me. You know, I don't want to be in any of the boxes. Actually, you know, I'm just me. I'm just the spirit inside the body. That's it. You know. When I come back next time, it might be a different body. I don't know. So, you know, I just don't put too much stock into that.
What comments or misconceptions hurt you the most, or are you completely over it, desensitized and numb at this point? What comments and misconceptions hurt you the most, if any?
None. Absolutely, positively none. I can't think of. I try to sometimes like play this game with myself. Like, what can somebody say that could possibly what will hurt? And I've done a lot of work in this area. A lot of work in this area. Like I said, I did not wake up one day and feel fierce and start dressing fierce and all of this stuff. It's been a lot of work. I'm talking therapy, writing, groups. I mean, I'm talking everything, and it's ongoing. So, and what I mean by it's ongoing, the sexual part is such a small part of me. It's so many other things that make up me. So that part of me, I don't have any attachment to anything. I had to live in a city where I was stared at every day, all day long, as if I was in a fishbowl. That's where I started to dress more like this. Like literally when I was out, when I was taking the subway, when I was walking down the street, I was stared at like this, pupil to pupil, as if I didn't see them. I had to get used to that. I had to get used to people pointing and laughing at me. I had to get used to that. Either that or be depressed, miserable, fighting, in jail, all of that stuff. Ain't nobody got time for any of that. I had to figure it out, you know? I stopped giving people my power. I don't give anybody my power ever. And then I moved up here and I don't have that anymore. It was kind of weird. I was like, well, why is anyone looking now? What's going on? What am I doing wrong? You know? So no, nothing nobody can say.
What time are we at right now?
Say again, Ty?
What time are we at right now? I have a show I have to do.
Oh, we're at 1 hour, 20 minutes, and I'm on my last question.
Okay.
So this is something I've always been curious about, because it seems like with everything else, I mean, from gangs to LGBTQ has become very, very commercial. How do you guys feel about like what I would say, you know, cisgendered people, hetero people taking on this, you know, quote unquote, LGBTQ persona, like where the girls would be like, hey, sis, and all that, you know, but they're not part of the LGBTQ. Are you annoyed by people that act like that, or do you feel like it's a celebration of who you are?
Well, I'm sorry, Dan. I don't mean to cut you off, but you said what is it called? What is it?
Cisgender, heteros.
That's right, but the cisgender is gay, right?
No.
Cisgender
it's just that if you're born a male and you still identify as male, that's cisgender. You still identify as the sex you were born with.
Oh.
Whatever. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so what you were asking is the equivalent of a white person walking up to you saying, yo, word to your mother. Is that respectful or is that goofy as hell? You look stupid. It's the same thing. Same exact thing. Like, it's, and I'm gonna tell you what irks me the most about that. It's usually the ones who do all the, because that's, you know, that comes from early drag talk. That's been with our culture for years. Those ladies who do that are typically the first ones when we make them mad. We're every sissy punk faggot under the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like we know that, so it's just like when we hear it, it's like, girl, now calm down, girl. You know, because every gay person don't talk like that. So just calm down, baby. You know. So.
Yeah, and I'm used to, like I said, the trans women from years ago. So like I'm used to the way that they're talking, but at the same time, it's like you're not using a lot of things in the right context. You don't know what it is you're saying. And it's like, you know, me. I'm Mexican American. I don't speak Spanish. If I start talking to a real Mexican and the little bit of Spanish I know, they're going to start using a bunch of words I'm not used to. I don't know. They're going to really start talking. And that's the way I feel with a lot of these people. I feel like, don't get me started because I really can talk that way. And you're not going to be able to follow the conversation. Then you're going to act like I'm doing something different when really you're just in a conversation you don't have the depth for. Because like all of that shit with the queens and the girls and the, you know, shade and reading. And there's a lot of terms that a lot of the kids don't even know now. And it's like you're starting a conversation that you really can't complete. And you're trying to act like you're teaching me something, which is very annoying. And don't yes, queen me in every day. No, thank you. I don't need you to, yes, queen. Yes, honey. Yes, girl. And it's like, girl, are we in a ball right now? Because I thought we were in a buffet. Like, when did it turn into a New York City ball?
All right. Did everybody hear that? You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Did everybody hear that? All right, guys. Thank you so much.
I think. Thank you for having me. I gotta go.
All right.
Thank you so much. Honored that you were here, open and ready to answer questions. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Ty. Stay safe. Thank you. On the block with Jen, y'all.
All right.
Great conversation.
Yeah, man. I'm hoping that, you know what I mean, people learned today, got some clarification. Of course, you know what I mean, Ty and Lily don't represent the entire LGBT community. But I hope that some things got clarified. I hope that people are more open. And the one thing that I love that I'm taking away from this is that they're so normal. And they have the same gripes and problems that we all have as quote unquote straight people dealing even with other straight people. So I'm hoping that, you know, people learn today. Any questions, comments, suggestions, leave it in the comments. I may get back to them. I may not, you know me. So thank you for joining us once again. This was our LGBTQ Real Questions, Real Answers episode. Thank you for joining us. And we're out on the block with Jen. Peace.